Did you tag me? Okay, let me just. Is it on the hand to hand, hand in hand?
Hand in hand.
I can't find it. Let
Wait.
it hopefully will come. Take some time to.
Let me share it and tag
Yeah,
you.
maybe you can just share it with on my WhatsApp, please.
I'll share and then I'll tag you in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see hand in hand.
Okay, so I've tagged you in now.
It's on hand in hand. Still in
I've
hand in
tagged you.
hand. I can't.
No, I've tagged you in, so it will come on your page now.
Okay, let me see.
Have you got
You see,
it?
this content isn't available at the moment. When this happens, usually because the owner only share it with a small group of people. Do you mind to just share it on my WhatsApp, please?
Okay.
If you share the link. Okay. Okay.
That's showing that it's still on. Okay, let me copy the link and send it to you on WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, yeah. And then from there, I can take that. I can use the link to share on.
Yeah, I've sent it.
Because hand in hand is close group.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
So people who are not signed on to it will not be able to access the content.
Okay, I get that now.
So
Have you got it?
even with even with that, people will not still be able to log in. I don't know what I understand.
To log in?
Yeah, so the link that you shared to me, yeah?
Yeah.
How you're going to start your Airbnb.
So if I go onto this, the link that you just gave me. Why is it showing? It's weird. Right, so we've sent it through Facebook.
Okay, I've sent another one.
Mm-hmm.
So
On WhatsApp.
we'll have double now.
On WhatsApp.
No, I've sent you on WhatsApp and I've also sent you on Facebook. I've tagged you on another on Facebook.
Okay. Mm. Can you not make that group that this thing pop this thing? See, I don't know. When I click on it, it says this content isn't available at the moment. When this happens, usually because the owner only share it with a small group of people. Change who can see it or it's been deleted. So
Refresh your page. I've sent another.
okay, let me
I've tagged you
refresh.
on another.
Let me go back on this other phone. This phone. Nelly.
Let me go to. Oh my God. Yeah, you're a mutual friend there, so you. Oh no. Okay. Look, you'll see a request from Hand in Hand.
Okay.
Probably that's why.
Yeah, so confirm.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably that's why you were not seeing it.
So if I go in now, hand in hand. Okay. Right. So I'm in now, in
Okay.
hand.
Yeah.
Now, if I take that same link
Mm-hmm.
and share it, anybody who is not has not been given access to hand in hand will not be able to go in. I'm in now because I'm signed in. You've given me, I'm following.
Mm-hmm.
So let me take that link now and share it. Let me share it on with my own. Let me share it on my this thing on my Facebook. Okay. Just hang. Okay. Okay. So it's showing that it's live on my Facebook. That's okay.
Yeah.
Let me now send it to. Let me share it with Priska. Okay. Okay. I think we can start, sis.
Okay.
At least the ladies did it today. We sorted it out.
Yeah. Just give me. It's good we've done it today. We are proud of. I'm proud of myself because technology is. I struggle with technology a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting the hands of it.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Okay. So, you can start with the intro.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching. And thank you so much for another wonderful episode again on our children, their safety. So this is our third session that we're having. And of course, we have an interesting topic today, which we're going to be, diving in to see what we can share among ourselves. Because as we said from the very beginning, this session is all about awareness because we have seen as parents how parents are going through a lot of pain, they're going through a lot of frustration, they have a lot of questions that they're looking for answers. And so I think we thought having this session is going to bring, create solve all of those, well, not all, solve some of those problems. So yeah, myself is Peggy Barre. I'm sure most of you already know me, but if you don't know me, I'm Peggy Barre. I am a survivor empowerment coach and also a domestic abuse practitioner. And I am with my colleague, my sister, Nelly Kasumi. So I'll pass you on back to Nelly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I am just so proud of myself that I've been able to do a bit of technical stuff because I really struggle with that. And that's an area that I massively need help with. Anyway, we are here now. So I am called Nelly Kwasunmi, and I'm a social worker as well as a transformational life coach. Like Peggy has said, we are sisters, we are friends, we are just everything, colleagues. And we see from the clients that we work with, they have expressed a lot of concerns and worries about their parenting capacity, asking if they're not good enough to care for their children. Some are worried that social services will take their children from them, and just so many worries. So we thought that to raise awareness around child protection, child safeguarding, and social services, we will be running these sessions to raise awareness. We did the launch session a month ago, and today is the second session that we are holding or we are running, and our sessions hold every 2 weeks. It is very open. We like it to be interactive because our experiences are different from you watching your experience with social services, with parenting for your children, especially if you come from a different community, a different society, to be in the UK or European system, which there are some massive differences. So we are here to raise awareness so that you are a competent parent, for you to be aware of the things that you need to make certain adjustments, so then you feel confident that you as a parent, you can discipline your children and not the other way around. So for today, we'll be focusing on what is child safeguarding and why does it matter? So that's our topic for today. Over to you, Pella.
Yeah, so it's very, very important that we go back to the foundation or the basics of social services, because we are here today all scratching our heads as parents, going through a lot of questions, banging our head on the wall, because again, sometimes we trying to look for solution and it seems as if nobody's helping us. So, but why is all of this happening? It all goes down to the basic. Why was social services created in the first place? Because it's like that necessary evil, if I can put it that way. It is needed, but then it comes again with some challenges. So why was it created? So I'm sure Nelly will be in the best position to answer that question as a social worker, because I'm sure going into social work, you would have actually gone through why it was created in the first place. So Nelly, please, if you could just enlighten us on that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think on the last session, which was the first one, we talk about some of the reasons why social services was created. And before we came on, Pella and myself were just talking about it because back in the 19th century, there was the rate of poverty in the UK was shocking according to history that was read. And like we were talking, now there's a massive shift.
Yeah.
And the poverty that people in the UK experience is similar to some of the poverty that people in Africa experience. And all of it is journey, is enlightenment. Anyway, so because of the massive poverty that was going on in the UK in the 19th century, psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, they wanted to see how things or life can be improved. So the first that came up was the poor law, and that the focus was how they could support people in abject poverty. And then that was the beginning. But then social services started with the churches and charities. They just wanted to, I mean, because at the time, charities was run mostly by the rich women from the rich backgrounds who had nothing to do. They stayed at home, the husbands went to work and brought the money. So these women, they realized that there was poverty around them. They were using their spare time to support people. So that's how social services came about. So from charity, churches got involved, and gradually it went to now a whole profession. So it's taken a number of centuries to get to where it is now. So from the poor law, it went up to, there was Sir Beveridge who did a report in the UK and came up with recommendations around, there were 5 recommendations. So that one helped to put in legislation, and then it progressed to Joseph Rowntree, who did again research. So all about it is evolving to make sure that people who live in poverty get the support to improve on the life of people. So basically, that's what social work is all about, and that's how it came into place. And it coincided with the NHS, because like the NHS was born in 1948. So it was around, things were evolving around the same time. But then we keep improving. The profession keeps improving, because at first, to be a social worker, you didn't have to get any formal qualification. It's just to go, because it was charity, you just do it to support other people. But then they realized that it's good to be structured. So then a training came in place. Social policies was included, legislation was included, sociology, research. So that's how social services progressed. And now it is a protected title, meaning anyone who calls themselves a social worker needs to go through rigorous training. It's a really rigorous training, because you do not just at the university, you need to do placement. For instance, there are 2 placements that you need to do. The 70 days to prepare you for practice, and then 100 days, which is a final. And when you qualify as a social worker, you need to be registered with Social Work England. That is the governing body or the professional body for social work. So if someone says they are a social worker, it's because they have done a lot of studies, and it is a protected title, which means by law, if you call yourself a social worker when you are not, you can be prosecuted.
That is absolutely interesting to know, because again, I think when we look, oh, can you hear me, Nelly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I was just about to say that was really, really interesting to know that brief background on the evolution of social work, how it started and where we are today. You could see that it really evolved, and it evolved over number of years, because I was reading, I was quite shocked that it started seeing like 15 something, 15. So you could tell that we've come a very long way. And if we're talking, you can see the origin of social work was linked to poverty. And I'm sure that begs the question, which again ties to one of the myths, which I think we touched on last week, where many people believe that it's only poor families that are involved with social services. That is on the one hand. On the other hand, some social workers believe that, some social workers assume that poor families cannot look after their children. So I don't know whether you get it. It's all connected to poverty. So again, coming back to that myth, well, I'm sure I already know the answer, but a social service only concerned with the poor?
Okay, so Generally, as a social worker, we need to build relationships with families. It is common to make assumptions that people from poorer backgrounds, they are not able to look after the children. That's an assumption. However, because social work, operates at the back of research, they go with what research says.
Mhm.
So the reason, this one is my personal opinion, why
Yeah.
I can say, I'm not speaking for all social workers or the social work profession itself, it is my personal opinion, that the reason that social workers look into poverty is because before, of people from poorer backgrounds, is because before a family comes into social services,
Mhm.
it is not about the poverty itself. It
Yeah.
could be the impact of poverty, which is directly related to how parents can manage even in poverty.
Yeah.
So, though poverty has a significant contribution to the experiences of families, it is how parents, because there's a common theme in social work, like you have mental health, you have domestic abuse, drug
Mhm.
use, poverty, they are all interlinked.
Yeah.
But just thinking, if it's poverty on its own, I don't feel that that will be a major reason for children's services or social services being involved. So there are many other things. And we talk about in social work, we talk about intersectionality because things merge up. Because I've talked about mental health, drug use, this illegal drug use, um, there's also race, there's
Mhm.
age. So there are
Mhm.
many other things that come into play, and it makes it really, really complex. So a
Mhm.
family cannot just be assessed because they are poor. There will be some other indicators that makes it really complex and that impacts on the family, and particularly because we are talking about children's services, it will particularly impact the child and their development.
That is really true, because when you speak like that, the few cases that I have gotten involved, or that I got involved with within my communities among families, you would see from the reports that it will either link to one of these things that you've mentioned. It's not poverty per se. Yes, finances play a bigger role, where if a parent, or because again, like to say, most of the families that I support, most of them are single parents. Okay. So you'll be looking at the fact that maybe they're struggling with finances, and they are looking for ways to actually go out make that money. But then they haven't got the child care. And then some of them are either risking it to leave the child at home, or leave the younger child with maybe the other siblings who are not yet adults, okay? Or they are risking it to leave that child maybe with the ex when domestic abuse is involved. So again, you can see that when the social service step in, it is not just about the poverty itself. It maybe the poverty would have led to some of these things, and maybe put the child now at a safeguarding level. They're looking at, like, they need to step in to make sure that they protect that child. So that really, really makes sense. And again, there is one thing that is very, very important, which is a myth and a question, where I know we did talk about last week, that when social service come in, what happens? Do we engage with them, or we don't? Because I think there's another myth that many people, we're going to talk about the cultural aspect later on, but I think there's another myth that people think that if social service if social service get involved in your family, the best way is to stop them from coming, or slam the door in their face, and they will stop coming. Is that right? Is that the right thing to do?
I think in certain families do that. In some cases that I've worked with initially, I've had that experience.
Mhm.
And looking back is because of the fear that families have, that and the myth that when social services are involved or children's services are involved, they just want to take their children away. But that's not the case. So parents who think that they can be defensive is because of a particular fear, which that is not necessarily a good approach, because the concern that social services had before getting involved with that family, it would increase, because besides that concern, there will be an additional concern that the parent does not want to engage, does not want to communicate. So then, out of curiosity, as a social worker, we will be asking, what is it that a parent is hiding?
Yeah.
So that is taking it to the next level, because we will have to escalate. Okay, for instance, if the child has concerns around suffering, which needs, say, child protection at the time, investigations needs to be carried out to determine if that child is suffering or the child is at risk of suffering significant harm, or if there are safeguarding concerns. So if the parent is not engaging to share that information with a social worker, it will even raise further concerns. And just talking now, I am just thinking probably this might be the reason why certain communities they realize that their children are taken into care. It might be due to lack of engagement. Then the social worker has more concerns that probably the parent is hiding something. So for me, the best approach, I'm not saying this because I'm a social worker, I'm saying this because I'm a mother, and the best approach that I feel is to engage with social services and ask, not just accepting whatever is being said to you, is to ask appropriate question, be proactive, and not just say, okay, the social worker has said, let me do this, and you just do it. No. For me, what I say with the families that I work with, I say, this is your family, this is your child. If you want, as you are working with social services, don't do anything to please social services. Focus on improving the relationship with your child, the dynamics and functioning of your family, because your family will be the one who will directly benefit. If you are not open and work proactively with social workers, then the situation will be getting worse, because social workers will have that fear, because it is their responsibility. Say the social worker who is allocated to work with a particular child, it is that social worker's responsibility to make sure that that child is safe. Because if anything happens to that child, it is that social worker who will face it all. It will not be other professionals. The first person will be the social worker. So to reduce that risk of concerns from social workers, which probably there might be nothing, is not to run away, because running away or slamming the door when the social worker comes in, it does indicate that there's something more that the parent might be hiding.
And then that just brings me again to another question before we talk about the cultural differences, Nelly. If again, I'm talking again from my experience, what I've experienced with some of the families that I support. I think we tend to be more on the defensive side rather than actually looking with an open mind where the social worker is coming from. And because again, like you say, that is why it's very important to actually know the basics. Why is the social service there for in the first place? Because if we don't understand why they are there, then that is where maybe our attitude towards them can can actually affect our relationship with them. If we see them from the supportive perspective, then we're going to be able to work with them, collaborate with them. But if we see them from the punitive perspective, that is where some of the parents or families kind of put up that barrier, like, you know what, they don't want to engage, and that is where they become defensive, and then they forget to see the point, the direction where the social worker is coming from, and that is where the problem usually lies sometimes, you know. So like you say, Nelly, it's about engaging, but being confident of what you're saying. And this is why I always say sometimes to family, there is no harm to actually go back and do your research. You can read. If you're on a particular section, I think you did talk about the various court order. Is it court orders? We did talk about them.
It could
the
be.
different sections.
Oh, the section 17 or the section 47.
Yes. So I think it's always important for the family to actually understand each section and what it involves, where you are at that moment and where you're going, because in that way, again, we talk about that confidence, so the family can actually speak with confidence, you know. So I don't know whether you have anything to add on that, Nelly, before we go on to the cultural differences.
Yeah, I think Pelada that's a massive, massive aspect, especially for African families. They want to be very defensive. And like now, with the advancement in technology, you can find information anywhere on the internet. However, it is disheartening that a lot of Africans do not want to read. They don't want to spend time to read, to develop themselves or to acquire more knowledge. So then I think it goes back to this saying that if you don't know, it won't affect you. But that's not true. That is not true. And you've talked about engagement. If parents engage with the services when they know their rights, that's a whole different thing. Parents who just want to, a lot of parents, they say, I'll just engage with social services to get them off my back or off my family. That is not being helpful, because like the honest truth, which I say to the families that I realize don't want to engage, I say, listen, this is a job that I do. And I really, really like the job that I do. And I like to see families who thrive. I will go home, I will get paid. But you, the family, this is your life.
Yeah.
If you don't make yourself comfortable, if you don't make yourself, the home comfortable, you are just lying to yourself. So I say that to parents, and I've realized that when I say that, it comes to parents as a shock, and they're like, oh, that's really true. So I tell parents, I like you to work with social services, not to get them off your back, but to say that you want to improve your life at home with your family, improve your relationship and the quality of life for your children and your entire family, basically.
That is so true. That is so true. It's all about the mindset. It is very, very important, because some of the, when you look at some of the situation, it's all the mindset, and coming from, like I say again, coming from that defensive part, that defensive direction doesn't help neither. Another important thing that we may want to talk about again, Nelly, I can tell that when you look at our community, I know social services or social child protection can happen to any family, whether white, black, whichever. It can happen to any family, whether poor or rich. There are rich people who also get into trouble with the social services. But one of the massive things that we've seen in our community, especially the BME community, is that cultural differences, which again is lack of ignorance. But then the ignorance is the fact that the worst part of the ignorance is that they don't want to even learn anything to see how they can, I don't know. Can you talk on that, Nelly?
Yeah, I think this is a massive one because I was looking into some statistics, though I don't have them at hand now. I looked at it the last time. That is massive. Though, if we look at the percentages,
Yeah.
children from the Black African community are not, percentage-wise, there are not as many as the English population. However, we are, or the African population is the minority. But in aspects like the youth justice, the percentage is really, really high. And in the care system, the percentage is on the high side. So there are different factors that could contribute to this. It's not certain because it changes, but because parents, okay, let me say, I will talk about the differences with the systems, which we talked about the last time. So we'll talk about the UK and African country systems. So in the UK, for instance, children are considered to be minors from when they are born to the age of 18. And parents have parental responsibilities. They cannot just leave the child to do whatever they want. But from an African perspective, once a child is born, it takes the community to raise that child. And it doesn't matter who. You can just leave the child to go wherever they want to go to. So comparing the two, back in the African countries, I would say that the parental supervision is really, really low as compared to in the UK, where parents that are like everywhere you have to be with your child, everywhere you have to be with. So when people travel from the African countries into the UK without acquiring knowledge that the systems are different, they leave the child at home, just like you said, they are out there in search of work to get money to feed the family, and they leave the child at home. At the back of their head, they know that in Africa, that's okay, and they can still do that here. They haven't looked up about the system here, and then they go to work, leaving the children, a minor, at home. And then what happens? The next thing they realize that there's the police, there's a social worker, and most of it is when the police or social worker comes and talking with the parent, some parents become very, very aggressive. And they're saying, it's my child, I have the right, and things like that. Which, this is a massive difference because in the UK, basically, the government are the owners of our children. That's the basic truth. But that's not the case in African countries. So any parent who wants to travel to the UK, make sure you understand the safeguarding system and the system in the UK as a whole, or whichever country you want to travel to. Even if you make that mistake and you acknowledge that you have made a mistake, but you want the best for your child, and work with social services, then you will get the support you need. And then if you just want to be defensive, that it is my child, and being very aggressive, that's the wrong approach that any parent will be taking, because the social worker will be very, very concerned. And I think from what you said, it is this approach from parents that makes things worse. And instead of accepting that or acknowledging that their approach was not suitable, they'll be like, no. They'll just be being so defensive and very aggressive and violent that it is their child, not realizing that, yes, you gave birth to that child, but in the UK, basically, it's a government child.
That is so shocking. You know that there was a day when I said to somebody that that child doesn't belong to you; it belongs to the queen. Well, at that time I said it belongs to the queen. That time the queen was there, and that is shocking. Many people they don't want to believe it. They don't want to even think of it. How come my child that I carry the child, I give birth to the child, I look after the child? How come it is the state that has control over that child? But I'm sorry, where we come from, that is our children, but where we are, it is not. And I think when we come to the realization of that, then Nelly, I think that is where we need to start being focused, and we need to start being serious in terms of child protection, because at that time it's not to scare us. What I always said, it is not to scare us, because I think some parents are so, this now brings me to another question, Nelly.
I think
Where,
just before
yeah,
you go to that other question, you've said
yeah,
so many things there that I just want to add a bit more.
yeah.
So when parents when parents feel that they are, I'm sure I've lost my train of thoughts. There was something that you said I wanted to talk about, but
Is it
gone.
like, is that the honor of their children are between the state and the states that own their children?
Yeah, that one. I mean, when I realized that, it was a massive shock to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the honest truth. So in African countries, okay, I've remembered what I wanted to say. So now, if you look at it, a lot of the trauma that bringing up our children that way has in Africa is
Mm-hmm.
coming up now,
Yeah.
because children are struggling, and that was, and it is an area that out of ignorance parents are not aware of.
Mm.
Because, for instance, I think recently I watched a video of a child who was, I think this child was like 8 years old or younger. This child was raped. But when this child was struggling, she knew that it was not a nice thing, but she couldn't really express herself. But
Mm-hmm.
then, as she was trying to speak to her mother about it, her mother was just telling her not to disturb and things like that. So, if we want to look at the parental supervision, if the parent was with a child,
Mm-hmm.
that could have been prevented. Or even if it happened in a way where it wouldn't have been prevented, but if, as a parent, you build that good relationship with your child to
Mm-hmm.
listen to them, at least you would support that child and that child will feel comfortable. But a lot of, I think probably because I am working with some African individuals who
Mm-hmm.
outwardly it seems as if they had the best upbringing and things like that, but they struggled. And it's,
Yeah.
for me, I feel that it is down to the parents' lack of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and not realizing that the children are suffering. And imagine, we know from studies, from psychologists, that from a very young age, children build the foundations of their mental representations. And if, as a child, they don't feel loved and cared for,
Mm-hmm.
especially emotionally, because what parents do is they provide food, they provide shelter, clothes, and things like that. And they say, I've done everything for my child. But
Yeah.
no, emotionally, that's massive, because if a child feels that they are loved, they are cared for, you don't have to buy all those toys, all those gifts, presents for them. The child will feel contented. But I think for me, emotionally, that's where there's a massive gap, massive gap. And it results to a lot of, African individuals. But now it's not just the children, there are adults, there are older people who, because of the system that they have grown up with, they didn't feel good within themselves growing up because of one thing or the other within their home. But because of the lack of knowledge, the parents, the great-grandparents and the grandparents, they didn't know any better. And now the children have got to an age where they are struggling, which for me, I feel that something like confidence is a massive part in the African community. People struggle with confidence. They are not able to talk what they want to talk or what they need to talk about. They will want to make it to be really soft and nice, to be accepted, to please people and things like that. So we might think that it is just an issue that is coming up now, but it isn't. It is from childhood, what you experience as a child. So there's just too much. But I think now a lot of it, I just keep saying, probably is thanks to advanced technology, because people now are able to talk about the struggles. Like there's a lot of reports about rapes, which probably, which is not probably, which definitely they were not being spoken of in the past. And also like mental health. Now people are coming up and expressing themselves. Those are things that, lack of knowledge, we didn't even know about that. And our parents, our great-grandparents, that was not something that they were talking about. But now people are opening up and talking, though there's still a lot of stigma around it and like taboos around it, but we need to be talking about it. Because some years ago, when I started talking about mental health, someone told me that, Nelly, you don't need to be talking about mental health because mental health is the white people's thing. And I was like, what? So the stigma is still there. And let me just point out, since I've gone to this, I know I've just gone on a tangent, but I think it's relevant. I think I was watching a TikTok a few days ago, and there was this lady. She has a massive TikTok follower, and on her caption was, African parents do not accept ADHD and autism for your children. And I was like, what? And I read the comments because I don't know this person. It just came up. So I read the comments, and none of the comments that I've read was in support of this lady. And I hardly write comments, but I wrote a comment, and in the lines of, she is just spreading false information. She needs to do a lot of, and those are the kind of information that we share.
Yeah.
We share and we continue to spread the wrong information. Because for me, if a school identifies that a child is struggling, it's not that they're picking on the child. They have a reason why they are saying that they feel that that child is struggling. And they do a referral for certain assessments to be completed. So again, if a child is referred for assessment and a parent doesn't want it, my question is it for the parent's interest or is it for the child's best interest? So when a social worker comes in, the social worker will focus on the best interest of that child and not the parents. Because sometimes the parents put their fears at the front and prevent the child from getting whatever support they need to get. So yeah, that's me. Let me stop here.
I think that honestly, everything that you said, was really, really relevant. There's quite a lot of takeaways from them. One thing, well, a few things stood out, which was we talked about again, so that takes me back to the question where I wanted to ask that cultural differences plays a massive role. And that is where parents who come from, especially abroad, into you know, the Western society that has got a structural legal system around a child safeguarding, they tend to struggle between discipline and punishment. And this is where you hear some social services terms like your emotional chastisement. They may tell you that emotional chastisement, and you, this parent, you're wondering what is emotional chastisement in the first place, you know. And this is where some of the families struggle. How can you discipline your child without getting into trouble with the social services? That is another big question.
Okay, so looking at physical chastisement is beating up the child. A lot of African families, myself included, that is how I was disciplined a few times
Yeah.
by my parents. And in the UK, and because that is the discipline that a lot of people have gone through, not just Africans, because even Europeans, those in other countries, that had been a common way of disciplining children. So some people, I mean, a lot of people still practice that, not just those who have come from abroad. But from research, physical chastisement is not helpful. Not helpful. Because when you beat a child becomes stubborn because they know that if you beat me, even if I have a cut or a broken arm, whatever, it will finish. But the worst part is the emotional abuse. Because emotional abuse does not leave any physical scars, but the mental scars and the damaging effect that it has on an individual is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, from research, we know that physical chastisement is not a good way of disciplining our children. So now there are different strategies or different approaches to discipline our children. Like we hear of conscious parenting, which is you talk with your child. You don't have to be a friend with your child, but you use the friendly approach so that your child feels comfortable to talk to you about things. Because if you can think of your own situation growing up, there were lots and lots of things that you couldn't even dare to start a conversation with any of your parents because probably you'll be smacked before you even go there. But now, if you have that friendly home environment and your child starts struggling with something and they come to you and say, can you just tell me a bit about, they open up and you talk.
Yeah.
It is much better to start, it's a foundation, to start it in the house, at home. And then if the child goes out, they might start doing research on the internet, because with technology, what our children know, most of it, we as the parent, we still do not know.
No.
So that takes me to an experience that I had with a number of families, because as a social worker, I realized that children would stand and talk to their parents as if they're just some garbage that needs to be thrown away. And I was so curious. I couldn't understand, because discipline, respect, those are some of my core values that I grew up with, and I've instilled that in my children. So out of curiosity, I asked a number of families that I've worked with, and I was like, how comes your child speaks to you that way? Because to me, when the first time, even till now, I've seen it so many times, but each time I see it, I still feel like, that's not right.
Yeah.
So as I was asking some parents, how it all started, why it got to that extent. The common response that I got was, well, if I don't give my child what they want, social services, they'll go to school and tell the teachers that they have been beaten, this has happened, and social services will come and take my child away. And I was like, that's not it. It doesn't have to be that way. As a parent, you have parenting responsibility over that child. 18 years after the child was born, 18 years, that's a very long time. I said, for me, it begins with parents. If parents are not confident, we have talked about confidence. If parents are not confident within themselves to discipline their children, children are very, very manipulative, and they easily pick up on the weak point of their parents, which is why a child will come to one parent and said, Mom, Dad, can you give me this? If they say, depending on the response, if they don't have it the way they want, they'll go to the other parent because they are so observant and they know how to play each parent against the other. So if a parent or if parents, whether they are parenting together or co-parenting, they are on the same pace.
Yeah.
They adapt probably a similar parenting style, then the child will pick up that, oh, if I ask this from mom and they say no, and I go to dad, it will still be no, regardless. But unfortunately, a lot of parents, because of their own insecurities, they try to play the other parent against, they want to play the other parent to the child.
Yeah.
So it's like, who then is the adult in this case? Which in some cases, the child becomes the adult.
Yeah.
And when the child, because that's where the roles are being reversed. So if a child plays the role of a parent, then the child will start threatening because the parent has lost that aspect of themselves. And now it comes like a battle because the child will demand for things. And if they demand for something and the parent does not provide it, because probably the parent had not put like routines, not put boundaries for such a long time. And when they come to a point now and they want to start implementing things that were not there before, the child starts retaliating. And this is where that battle comes in. But it doesn't mean that because parents have failed initially, there will be a failure. No, there is always a starting point. Wherever with your journey of parenting or with yourself, you realize that you made a mistake. Probably you didn't put routines, you didn't put boundaries when your children were growing up. You just gave them whatever. Because sometimes parents say, I just want to give my child what they want. I know I want to spoil them so that they don't, whatever the reason is. And looking at it, some parents who lack something, let's say parents who grew up in abject poverty, they want to give everything to their child.
Yeah.
When the child asks this, they give. In a way, the parent is spoiling the child, and the child doesn't learn to self-regulate, which means that when the child wants something, they know that if they ask for whatever, they'll get it.
Yeah.
They don't learn how to self-regulate, and those children will turn, threaten their parents that if they don't do that. And some go to school, some of the children go to school and they fabricate stories.
Yeah.
But because we social workers are not within the home environment to know what is going on and what is not going on, we rely on information from family members, the child included, because the child's voice is very important. So for instance, if a child goes to school and say that the parents have beaten them up and things like that, they'll look if there are any marks. Okay, if there are no marks, that the child has made that disclosure. Further actions will need to be taken, which say through the investigations, what are the parents aware of that? So gathering information, So imagine if the parent is avoiding to engage
Mm-hmm.
with social services, who already have a concern that the child has disclosed that they have been beaten, and probably that they beat them all the time.
Yeah.
The social worker will not be given the chance, but will have to focus on what the child says because they are not getting any information from the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it goes back to what we initially started about parents engaging with,
With
um,
your children.
with social services. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so true. So true. I'm going to come into that because from the domestic abuse point of view, it plays a bigger role. But what I just want to say again to any of our viewers, I think I've been getting quite a lot of messages, Nelly, from a lot of people to say that they cannot access the link. But I
Oh.
know why the problem is. So I think what we're going to do next time is if you can streamline on your Facebook page
Mhm.
and then we share and then you share it with Hand in Hand because Hand in Hand is a close group. So only people who are in that close group can watch. They can watch
Oh.
anything that is, yeah. So that is the problem. But don't worry, I think we can figure it out. So next time you stream on your Facebook group and then now we share into Hand in Hand. That's why many people cannot.
Because it is live on, okay, so there are two Hand in Hand. So it is
Yeah.
live on Hand in Hand.
Yeah. It's left on Hand in Hand, but people cannot access the link because Hand in Hand is a closed group, isn't it?
I'll need to check into that.
Yes, you need to check
Sorry,
into it. So
anyone.
when you make a Facebook group closed group, only people who are in the group can watch whatever thing is happening in that group.
Oh.
If an outsider click on the link, it will not give them access because it's only closed. That means it's a secret group. That's how yeah.
Okay.
But if you stream live on your normal Facebook page and share it now with Hand in Hand, people now can watch it from anybody can watch because your Facebook page has not got restriction. So that's why even that link that I've shared with many of people, they're texting me, WhatsApping me that they cannot get through.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So then it would be a matter of checking the privacy setting.
Yes, so you can check the privacy setting, but find out because I know that most Facebook group, once you make it a closed group, you cannot make it a public group.
Oh.
But you can make a public group, you can make a public page into a private page, but sometimes you cannot reverse a private page into a public page, but find out maybe it's changed. Just find out.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I'll
I
find out.
check the settings.
Mm.
So one thing that I wanted to talk about, which was very important again, Nelly, is the impact of domestic abuse and the role of the children. I used to deliver one of the domestic abuse courses called the Freedom Program. And that Freedom Program, again, it tells you the different qualities of a perpetrator. One of the qualities of that perpetrator is the bad father. Okay, so the bad father, or now again it's been reversed, the bad mother. I can ask where be the bad mother. But when the program was designed, it was more about the bad father. But now we have some bad mothers as well. So as a bad father, what the bad father does is that the bad father paints the mother a bad person. So the bad father actually turns the child against the mother or the victim. It turns the child against the victim. So in the course of that, the child, because of that, and again, this is where the domestic abuse come because the both parents are not in agreement. The both parents are looking for one way or another to bring the other down or to discredit the other. And because of that, the child turns into the child becomes the scapegoat. So that scapegoat, the perpetrator can use that child as a scapegoat. The victim can also use that child as a scapegoat. So the perpetrator now will be using that child as a scapegoat against the victim, which is the mother, which they say is the mother. So now, this is where we were talking about children's behavior, where again, it starts to deteriorate, not because of even the relationship. Well, it starts to deteriorate because of the fight that is happening between the mom and the parents. It's because of domestic abuse. And then the position of that child begin to change. That child moved from a child into a protector. So the child now is protecting the victim, or which is mostly the mother, because it sees the mother as the weaker person and is trying to protect the mother against from the perpetrator, which is the father, So that is where, again, that protection starts from young. If those children were in that domestic abuse environment as young kids, and then they grew in that domestic environment, and the protection role is always upheld by the male child, mostly by the male child. Some daughters will still play that protective role, but mostly the male child will play that role. And then when the male child now stands into that protective role, they now think in their mind that they have to protect their mom. And even you will see that with most families that we support, even when the mom has left that perpetrator and they've moved into a new environment, that child still stays in that protective position. That child is not playing the role as a child. That child is playing the role now as protecting the mom. And that is where you will find it difficult, where the mom cannot even take a decision. They cannot even say certain things because that child is already playing that role. And no, I am the figurehead here to protect you. And I've seen situations where the parents, that is where some moms are so scared even of their children. They're scared of their child. I have a parents that said, no, I cannot leave my house. I can't go visit my friends after 8 p.m. because my son is going to, my son will stop me. That son now is an adult, 18, but he's still living at home. But that son will literally stop the mom from going out to visit anytime after 8 p.m. because that child's brain is still activating that protectiveness against the mother. And this is where you see that the child now, whatever thing the mom wants to say, or whatever thing the mom wants to, how in that position, you as a mom, you find it difficult to discipline that child, if you get what I mean. Because yes, although that child is protecting you, but then that child is undermining your parental abilities. So you can see that it is it's another dilemma where it is very difficult, where domestic abuse plays a massive role. And then when social service now come involved, or they come into that family, some of them fail to understand where the mom is coming from. And this is where they start to feel that the mom is not disciplining the children in the right way. But the mom is saying, how can I speak if the child is victimizing? So I don't know if you get it. So this is where I don't know whether this is where the social service needs to. I know some of them will want to understand where the mom is coming from, and then this is where the mom will literally need help, not punishment, or not a punitive approach, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. And like we said, it's not just starting when that child became an adult.
Mm-hmm.
It started when the child, from very young, probably that has been the environment that the child lived in when they were born, or probably before they were born.
Mm-hmm.
And because the mother or the victim is behaving the way they are behaving out of their own fears,
Yeah.
the child has picked up upon the parents, the weaker parents' fears. And now the child is taking that role as a protector, which it impacts the child, because some children, they go to school. Like I worked on a case, and this child, the mom was a single mother, and she had two children. The younger child, who was last year in primary school, who was very concerned because this child would go to school and she would just sit like that and be dazed.
Mm.
And she was worried what must have been going on with her mother back at home. And because of that, her academic performance was impacted. She started, she was not engaging well. And then she started being isolated. She used to have a group of friends, but then she started going within. When, say, during break, she will sit in the class all by herself and the others will go. So from a social worker's point of view, they will be looking at the impact on the child, because children are meant to be children. But then why are children now taking up on adult businesses or adult responsibility? So where is their childhood? And this has a knock-on effect, because if a child misses a portion of their development and they get to adulthood, yes, they will get there, they will grow as an individual, but mentally, they are still there, which is why, this is my theory, that this is why a lot of people now, they behave outwardly as adults,
Yeah.
but
And inwardly
mentally,
as
they are
children.
children. Because
Yeah.
sadly enough, some parents talk ill about the other parent to the child. So what is that doing to a child whose brain is still growing? They don't know anything about adult information. And it is obvious that when that parent is saying ill about the other parent, they will not be saying anything nice.
Yeah.
So it's just leaving that child in a confused state. And then the child, because probably the other parent is not saying anything about the parent who keeps talking about, they are so confused. And then sometimes they might take side with the parent who is giving all this information. And then sometimes they feel that they are comfortable with the other parent. But again, that's too much information and the impact it has on the child. So from a social worker's perspective, they will focus on the impact on the child, though they're not disregarding the struggles that what the mother has gone through. What the practice is that they will look for support for the mother. What they will offer support to the mother, because if she is struggling, she will obviously be struggling to meet the needs of the child. So they will offer support to the mother as well as working with the child. If the mother is working, I mean, there have been instances where the parents, even both parents, they have engaged and they have had success. But some other families, they're still in denial. Even the victim, they are in denial, probably because of the fear, the cultural stigmas that once you are married, you need to stay married, like regardless of whatever you are going through. So because of fear, people make decisions that it is easier for a social worker to say that the parent or the victim is prioritizing their relationship over the welfare of the child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Wow, that is so insightful today. Oh gosh, we're already 10 minutes, like 9 minutes. The conversation is just flowing and flowing, So yeah, so that is so we really had an insightful discussion today, and I'm just conscious of time. I don't know if there's any other thing on your list that you wanted to talk about, Nelly.
I think we've done far. Oh, I didn't realize that's how the time has gone.
Yeah, that's why, because the conversation was deep and so interesting. Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
we'll just carry forward if there's anything, and it's my apologies that I thought we had sorted this technology stuff. So if anyone watches this after, please just send a comment, make a comment, because we'll be reading the comments and we'll still answer you, even if you are not live. Though it could have been much better for you to ask your question and get an answer straight away. But it's work in progress. It's work in
Yeah, no,
progress with me and technology.
yeah, don't worry, we'll sort that out. At least now we know the problem. So it's either
Mm.
just to make find out if we can make hand in hand a public group. But if you still want to leave it as a closed group, that is fine, not a problem. Then next time what we can do is you stream on your account, your Facebook account, and then you share into hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, let's talk about that just after when we finish this
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching today. Of course, we've learned quite a lot. We have talked about why social service was created. We have explored some of the myth in social service, or the myth that we have about social services. We've talked about some of the challenges between the cultural differences, like where we come from and where we are. The African context of child upbringing is totally different from the context of the UK context, or even not just the UK, the Western context of child upbringing. We've also talked about, the differences between discipline and punishment. We've talked about the approaches that the social service will use when they come into a home. They are coming there not to punish you. They are coming there not to take your children away, but they're coming there because there is a concern about your child, and all they want to do is to make sure they support you and your child. We've talked about social services is not just for the poor. Yes, poverty may lead to why social workers will get involved in your family, but it is not solely about poverty. Even the rich people, they get involved with social services. So it is not about the poverty, it is about the need, or the need that has been identified that about that child. If they see that the child has got a need, then yes, of course, they will come in to make sure they provide that need or help you to meet that child's need. Again, we've talked about the social services from the point of view of domestic abuse, where the parent is from the domestic abuse, and then the child takes the protective role, and then in that way they find it difficult to discipline their children because now that child is playing the role of an adult, not as a child. But then again, Nelly has talked about when social service come in that context, the first thing they're looking at is to protect that child, but then yes, also look at you as the parent. What are the support that you need? So yes, we've talked about a lot of things today, and thank you so much for being part of us. Thank you so much for watching. And like Nelly said, if you watch and you have any question, write down your question. We will read it, and then maybe when we come on to our next session, what are the topics that you want us to talk about? If there's anything that you find it so you in fact is on your mind that you want us to talk about, Nelly is there. Nelly has been, she's a social worker. She knows the ins and out. Any question, pop it there, and then Nelly will be able to answer. So yeah, that's it and done. Nelly, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think you've summarized it really, really well. So just to say, we don't have any topic for our next, for the next session. It's just open. So if you can send that to us so we can prepare for the session, that will be great. So then our next session will be on the 27th of June.
Yeah.
And if you want to take part, if you want to be part of the panel and not just myself and Peggy talking, just send us a message and we will contact you so that we can give you the login details so you join us. Because all what we are doing is about learning.
Yeah.
Let's be open-minded. We learn and we grow to improve ourselves, that of our families and our community.
Mhm. Okay, that's it. And done. Nelly, thank you so much today for your insight. Thank you for all the information. I am learning as well. Like I say, it's always good to learn. We are in a we are a work in progress. That's what I always say. We're a work in progress. We always learn. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll meet again in 2 weeks' time. Yeah.
Thank you so much and have a nice weekend.